Hey, welcome back to On the Line, a fishing podcast. We talk about bass baits and the big moments on the water. I'm your host tonight, Tim Boyden, and thanks for joining us. Let us know if you have any questions at all, and or just friendly comments. Today we're breaking down the action at Milford Lake. The tournament was pretty rough for a lot of people, but a lot of small limits. But a lot of people caught some pretty nice fish out there. Um, we also are going to introduce a new section tonight that's called Rigged and Ready. And tonight's topic is kayak motors. And so stick around for that. It'll be pretty interesting. So let's bring on tonight's guest. First place, Big Bass winner, and you know him as my co host, and my very own brother, and Tony Boyden. Let's give it up for Tony Boyden.
How's it going, everybody? Nice to be on this side of it.
Very nice. You might know him from our last podcast as Dr. Finesse. For his surgical cast, back again for another second place finish, and moving up an AOI leaderboard, Cole Spriggs. What's up, Cole?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Tony said to keep the intros a little shorter, so you know. And a special shout out to Joe Bailey. He placed a solid third place finish. He wasn't able to make it tonight, but maybe next time we can get him on. Tony, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for the events coming up in the future.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. So just a few events. Sunflower, the weekly Sunflower Tuesday nights. There's a few lakes coming up. Clinton Lake, it's going to be a team tournament next week, August 19th, 26th of August at Gardner Lake, September 2nd at Osage Lake. So if you haven't participated in the Sunflower or you're curious about them, check out their Facebook page. Kansas Kayak Bass League on August 30th at Perry Lake. So that's a week before the Kansas Kayak Anglers. So if you want to get out and give yourself a try and see if you like Perry Lake and give that tournament a chance. Just be safe out there. It is Labor Day weekend. And if you don't already have it marked on your calendar, there's a Ned versus Nico seminar at the Great Blue Heron Outdoors, which is located in Lawrence, Kansas, on August 23rd. If you can, please RSVP on the Facebook page saying that you're going to come. We want to make sure that we can accommodate as many people as possible. And it should be a really, really good learning experience. So if you haven't signed up, or if you're interested, make sure that you get out there and you RSVP on that, because there is a limited space. So we want to try to make sure we accommodate everyone. So Tim, thank you for that. Over to you for some questions.
So this is going to be kind of interesting tonight, interviewing my little brother, who has become a lot better fisherman than myself. So, Tony, before we dive into the tournament stuff, so how did you get started into fishing and into the kayak world?
I started about 3-4 weeks ago. Never had a fishing rod in my hand. No. Mostly a fair weather fisherman. I mean, Tim can attest to this. We used to go out and he used to take me out. Usually he'd let me borrow a rod, whatnot, right, when I was younger, probably 14, 15. I started fishing a little bit more with some buddies and stuff, like when I was able to drive, had my own vehicle, my own truck. Going to farm ponds mostly, not a lot of lake hopping. Our oldest brother, David, was really, really big into fishing as well. And so I follow him along on his pontoon boat or whatever boat he had at the time. But mostly I had to borrow equipment because I've never really had much of my own. But I really started getting into it, I think, really started getting into a hardcore probably in like 2018. That's really when I got the bug. First time I stepped on a kayak, I was down in Florida, and I came back and I looked at my wife and I said, "This is my life now." And that's 7 years later, and it's still my life. So that's kind of, I'm not as wasn't out there in diapers and fishing like a lot of people, but it's just really just something that I've loved for the past 7 years. And I think growing up and fishing a little bit here and there was more about the camaraderie, going with my brothers, taking my nephews out fishing, taking my son fishing. That was always what was really the big kicker for me, because it's just peaceful. So
what got you into kayak fishing? You're speaking was there a bug that bugged you a lot, or?
For me, it was when I took a trip, Tim and I's, like I said, Tim and I's oldest brother, David, he was bugged me to go on this trip. He's like, man, you got to get into kayaks. But he's one of those people that's always into a lot of things. He tries to get everybody else to do them with him. And I was like, yeah, okay, just another one of these things, right? And he let me borrow a kayak. I think because we drove all the way down to near Panama City, Florida, Panama City Beach. And I got on the water there, and it was like crystal clear water. It was, white sands, absolutely gorgeous. And I didn't catch any fish on the Gulf of Mexico, but I was like, this is absolutely amazing. I equated it to taking a hike, right? You can go as fast as you want by a woods and nature areas and things like that. But when you get out and you hike it and you look around and you see how gorgeous it is, you're like, yeah, I could do this. And I actually quit my side business when I got back, or slowly got out of it. And then I bought my first kayak, and then it was just a paddle kayak. And then I bought, Tim was trying to get me to do the tournaments when I still had a paddle kayak. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And then in 2022, I bought my first Hobie and did my first tournament and caught one fish. So
very nice.
Yeah, I think 10 years ago I probably couldn't have told you the difference between a crankbait and a jerkbait. So I've come a long way. And hello, Derek. Nice to see you.
Yep. Hey, Derek, how's it going? And Cole, we kind of discussed this last time, but kind of like your deal getting into kayak fishing. Did you have someone that drove you in that direction?
Having grown up fishing my whole life, the kayak fishing started in college. I was doing a lot of bank hopping, and there was a garage sale. There was a $25 kayak. It's called the Fiesta. I still own it to this day.
Oh, wow.
And slap that sucker in the bed of my truck, and I use that for a year, just really as a kind of a river rat, right? Something I can throw in, get to the next shoal down in Arkansas in. And so that's what really kind of got me off the shore and opened it up. And then it's just been a, growing addiction since that point.
Very nice. Well, should we jump into the questions about the tournament?
Oh, I guess not much.
I got to hear everything that Tony has to share.
Yeah, yeah.
It'll be short and sweet.
Yeah, so first place, big bass. That's a heck of a day on the water. Walk us through your morning. Where did you start, and what set the tone for the win?
I think it actually, I felt earlier in the week, I was like, I don't know why I'm so excited for this tournament at Milford. Like, I get excited for tournaments, but like I was extremely excited for this tournament. I didn't really even do that good there last year. I just wanted to chase smallmouth. Like I was just really in the mood to chase a big smallmouth. And so I was really excited about it. Got there Friday morning, and I fished the whole cove on I don't even know what side it'd be, the west, kind of the west side. I mean, I went around every bank. I was thought, oh, maybe I'll, get on some big largemouth or something, Yeah, nothing but drum. I mean, I didn't catch hardly anything in practice. I went out to the main lake point, where I caught a 16 off a ledge. And I was like, all right, come back here tomorrow. And that's where I started. I started kind of beating the bank a little bit, caught a few smaller ones. And I noticed as I started to go a little bit deeper and kind of a little farther away from the point, looking for drop-offs, I noticed I started picking up a little bit bigger fish, 14 to 15, things like that. So I got, there was another angler there who wanted to go to the same point. Luckily, I had a faster trolling motor, got there, but he was still beside me, and he actually ended up catching a couple big fish that location when I had moved off it later. But I sat there and I caught a few more, and that was the only spot like I caught anything of size in practice. I was like, okay, I highly doubt it's going to be there tomorrow, right? Like there's not going to be anything of size. And I look over to the right, and there's this little point sticking out, and I was like, that looks kind of nice. I like that point. And it was just a rock, kind of a rocky point, almost like a beach. And I was like, do I go left or do I go right? Excuse me. And I was like, I think I'm going to go right. That looks just nice. So I'm going to go there. So I started at about 3 foot of water, and the wind had shifted a little bit, and it was coming over that point, which is, as we know, is always great. And I just cast out there using a little finesse jig with a little trailer on it, and just kind of let the wind kind of I shut off my trolling motor, let the wind kind of pull me back over that point with my bait. And I got like I think I had 14 or 15. I'm like, all right, cool. That's really good. And then I just kind of started working out the bait farther and farther. And then they just started like hitting like crazy. I was like, what is going on here? I kind of think a 16, a 17, a 17, like 17.75. And then I'll talk about the big bass here in a minute. But so, I mean, they were just hitting like, I think within like 30 minutes, I almost called every fish. And I was like, this is unreal. And I missed 2 or 3 nice ones off that point. So it was just after I caught that first fish, started finding them deeper, is really when like, okay, I might have a chance of this, right? But you never know. People don't submit fish, and you never know whatever. Yeah, every time I start catching fish, I'm like, well, everybody else is catching fish, so I'm surely, everybody else is having this kind of day. Because I think Saturday was actually fished a lot better than Friday. So, and I didn't want to submit all my fish right away. I think I had around 78 inches at like 10:30, 11 o'clock. Is when I finally got hit that 80 mark. So I was just like, I'm just gonna submit 1 fish an hour, and then wait for my last big fish to submit at the end of the day. So.
And we discussed this, but it's kind of like the Milford tournament where you just kind of sat there and you just found that spot that was working in deeper water. You said how deep of water?
Well, I went everywhere I caught them all the way from like 3 foot, but they seem to be smaller, 10, 12 inches, I really caught the bigger ones because I kind of seen them swimming in about, 8 to 12 foot of water. And I was looking for, structure like rock ledges and stuff. So I just kind of stayed around that whole point and worked it back and forth. And I mean, I didn't go that far, but I left, which was always like, you think, oh, I should have stayed. But I mean, obviously I still was able to get the win, but because I went back to that point and I called 2 more after 2 o'clock. So yeah, it was crazy. So
very nice. Well, Cole, let's move to you. So you were right on his heels in second place. What was your game plan going in, and how close did you feel like you were overtaking Tony? I talked to you at the very end, so I know your thoughts there, but did you ever feel like you were overtaking?
I felt like I actually had a pretty rough day. So my experience on Milford's pretty limited, even though it's really not too far from home for me. But I have never actually fished the side of the lake that I was on. It sounded similar to Tony. Mainly started out, I tend to have a theory that I like to pre-fish where I don't plan to fish. It's got to be good enough to convince me, right? That whatever I thought, drew up, map studied was going to work. And so with the crazy amount of wind we had on Friday, obviously that really limited where I could fish. And I fished a few points, and I had the thing that happens that I absolutely hate while pre-fishing is I caught a decent sized smallmouth, over 18 inches. And I thought, well, can't promise they're going to be where I thought I should go. So I might as well go here and at least catch 1 decent fish. That's what I told myself. So my game plan was really to go hit this spot and then just explore. If I don't fish well, at least I'll learn another area of the lake, pick up something. And
sure.
One of the fun things about this tournament is I do have the ability to live scope, but I never do. I never put it on my kayak. I'm not good enough with it yet to feel like it's going to make or break an event for me. In fact, I think it hurts me a lot of times looking more than I am fishing. But coming up to a point, I'm very similar to Tony. With smallmouth, I tend to not move when I find them. And so coming up to the point, I had noticed, not with live scope, but with side scan, I could see a boulder field in about 8 to 12 foot of water, and I could see the shadows. And for those that haven't used side scan a lot, you don't normally see the fish, you see their shadow kind of casting off of it. But the problem with side scan is when you stop moving and you spot lock, you lose your visibility in that moment, right? So I waited till the tournament started and kind of let the wind push me back and kind of gave a little bit of a run to where I was going to stop again to start fishing. And I noticed that those shadows that I had marked were gone, but they were on the other side up towards the point. And so I knew those fish had moved up in that moment. And so I caught 3 of my keeper fish probably in the first 30 minutes of the tournament. And that became problematic because I didn't want to leave at that point. I kept telling myself, but I did a lot of this back off the point, use side scan, and it was very predictable. If they were deep, even though I'd fished for them there, I couldn't get them to eat. But then if I'd see them disappear from that area, I knew they were moving up on the point, and I'd catch fish. And I'd go in little like flurries, like Tony had mentioned, where you get into them for 15, 20 minutes and then it shuts off for an hour. So it was a long day in a very limited spot. Probably should have done a little more exploring, but I was glad to hear some bigger fish were caught. But this happened to be a spot where I could not break, 16 plus inch fish to save my life. Didn't get to see one, but probably similar to Tony, throwing a finesse jig. I found that I switched lures a lot because I wanted to break up my presentation throughout the day. But they started getting pretty finicky. So I kept getting smaller and smaller and lighter on the jig just to see if I could pick up bites.
Okay. Yeah, I was using a tube, and the day before I killed him, but I could not find size with the tube, like 14.75. I think that was my big fish on the tube, and I caught 750 inches of fish in 2 days, but that doesn't matter because they were all 10-inch fish, So I was like, oh, man. But that jig seemed to be, I heard from like 3 or 4 people, that little jig just seemed to get that bigger bite. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Tony, let's hear the big bass story. Bait, bite, give us the rundown on it.
Yeah, well, first off, I thought it was a catfish because I was on that point I was talking about a little bit earlier. And like I said, it kept moving out. And at least my kayak was in 21, 22 foot of water. And I was throwing up on that point. And I just drive up to where the point was. I'd look over to my left and the point kind of came out. I'd just troll up to it. And then I'd shut my trolling motor off. The wind was blowing almost perfect speed. It was like I was blowing at like, I don't know, 8.8 miles per hour, which is like, in my opinion, like kind of perfect. But I'd throw it really far because I knew it had to sink quite a bit, right? It's because it was, light. So I wanted to get it down there, 15 plus foot of water. So I just throw it out there, let it sink, take a drink of water or something, wait for it to sink. Then I could kind of fill it on there, and I just kind of slowly reel it in. And at that point, it already drifted back some. So I just slowly reel it in, stop for a second, slowly reel it in. And once again, I was using the finesse jig. Now I did catch some fish on a tube and stuff. I actually lost a really big one on tube, but it destroyed the tube, and then I lost the hook. So I was like, then I'd already broken off my finesse jig, so I actually tied the finesse jig back on my rod I had set up for a tube. So, which was the right choice. So sometimes it's not, but it was. So when I got over there and it kind of tapped out a little bit, and then I was like, oh, I set the hook, and I'm like, oh, this is a big one. I was like, oh, I wasn't even really that excited. I was like, oh, this has got to be a drum, right? This has got to be a catfish. I know there's big blues in there. I'm like, I did not think, because the way it was fighting, it wasn't coming up, it was staying down. It wasn't jumping out of the water. So I was convinced, and it felt like kind of like rolling, almost like a catfish. And I was like, okay. And the drum kind of do that little, I don't know, I can't explain it, but you feel a drum on, you kind of know it's drum, and it was doing that. So I was like, I was convinced, and it felt like 10-minute fight, but I'm sure it was probably 30, 40 seconds at the most. Yeah. And I got it in there, and I was like, this, oh my God, I thought it was gonna be like 19 and a half, 20. And it was thick, really thick. But I got in the boat, I measured it, and I'm like, all right, because at that point I think I'd only had like 15s and 16s maybe, so I didn't have a really kicker fish in my opinion. I really don't remember, because I caught quite a few, and I was so excited that day. I just was getting on fish that I kind of lost track of time. But yeah, I was on that same point, and I got all the way out to 21, 22 feet where I was casting and just letting it kind of drift and drag and reel just slightly. And yeah, it was amazing. And I actually did get another one on video that was right at that same exact spot, like 5 minutes later, that did jump out of the water, and it was probably bigger than that one. And hopefully I haven't gone through all my video yet. Don't worry, everyone. They'll be coming soon. But
On Patreon.
yeah, and it jumped out, and I could see it, and I was like, it's like, oh, my goal was to try to get a 20-incher. That was my goal for a 20-inch smallmouth, but I did not achieve that. Although at that one I missed, I'm just going to say it was 20.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, it was, I think I was actually shaking a little bit on that one, which I haven't done that in a tournament in quite some time. So,
did you have that moment where you freaked out when you realized it was a bass, not a drum? Like right when it swirls at the kayak?
I don't think I realized it, and I have to look back, but I don't think I realized it until it was like an inch from my net, because it was staying down. It wasn't coming up. Like I said, it was fighting like almost like a big drum or a catfish or something. It didn't feel like a smallmouth.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I think I made that comment to a few guys on the water as well, that normally smallmouth they rocket out of the water, right? They want to get aerial super fast. All the fish I caught were the same, Tony, where they dug, they swirled like a drum, and you were unsure. And I don't know that I had any that really jumped, which is weird for smallmouth. Might be a water temp thing. Who knows?
Yeah, I may have had 2 or 3 that jumped like that I lost, but most of them stayed down. I mean, really. So there was a few big ones that I lost that stayed down. And so I can't say that they were 100%, smallmouth, but, I'm going to hope they were. So
Tony, Cole already kind of talked about this, but so that point you were fishing, or that area you were fishing, was it a sand chunk rock area, or was it like rock that transitioned into sand, or what was the bottom like? Because you could probably feel it.
Yeah, so it was almost like gravel. Like the point was a gravel point. That came out, and I didn't really get to see but it wasn't chunk rock. It was like a flat, and I'm not sure if it was sandy but it had a fairly hard bottom, but you could kind of feel as you're dragging that along, some smaller rocks it'd be hitting. So I would say it transitioned from gravel to maybe like sand and like smaller, like fist-sized chunk rock. Because like I said, you could feel some of them. And I did actually later spot a tree, kind of a brush pile, kind of out a little farther past that point where I wasn't fishing. I tried it, but I didn't get anything off that. So I don't know if they were hanging off that and then coming off that point and going back. But yeah, there was a small little brush pile, very, very small, kind of off that point, like way out, maybe like 25 foot of water. So
very nice. All right. Well, you guys want to move into round robin here and kind of shoot off some questions at you, Tony? We'll start with you.
Let's do it.
All right. Did you have a goal coming into this tournament at all? And before you answer that, I will say, Tony said he had a really good feeling about Milford. He told me that like that Monday. He's like, man, I feel really good about Milford. I don't know what it is. I was like, yeah, right. He goes, no, I'm serious. I feel really good about it. I'm like, okay. So yeah, that was.
Well, I had a couple. Right. The first one, I don't know if they're watching or if they will watch in the future, but if you watched the last podcast, and Cole, you were on it, so maybe you remember, we were talking about predictions for Milford. And, you were in there. I think Jay and Derek and Clayton were in the top, finishers. And Todd said, Ernesto said, I'm betting for you, Tony, and that you're going to win. And I was like, yeah, sometimes I get lucky. And then I said, I bet on myself, because sometimes I just get lucky when it comes to smallmouth. And so I think I owe Ernesto dinner, actually, because I told him if I won, I'd buy lunch. So I'm going to have to hit him up for lunch next time I see him. And then Todd jokingly goes, I'm going to bet against you. And so he bet against me, and I was like, okay, that's what I need. So my goal was to win, but I didn't really think I had a chance. And then so that was one of my goals, and just really, actually, I was just trying to go after like a 20-inch smallmouth, because I know they're in there, and there's some big smallmouth. And that was actually my only goal. I wanted to my personal best is 20 inches, and I kind of wanted to break that. So I didn't have any grand delusions that I'd win the tournament or anything like that. I just wanted to get on some big smallmouths. That was my only goal. So,
and just a side note, that was at Clinton, correct?
Yeah, that was at Clinton in a Sunflower Tuesday night tournament.
Go watch that video as the smallmouth goes underneath his kayak, comes on top of his Hobie, and then comes back off his Hobie underneath the kayak again, and he didn't lose it. And I'm like, dude, they look out of the water that far, and it's off my hook. I'm like, how did it flopped on top of his deck and then went back under? And I'm like, what the heck?
And a lot of people have told me from that video is like, you didn't even set the hook. Well, it just kind of tapped at it and kind of like took it, and it just drove it into its mouth, right, the hook. And not gonna lie, it was the exact same bait I was using last weekend. So that's what I caught it on. And so it drove it into, and it literally flopped on the hatch of my Hobie, and went back all the way around underneath, and then went back. And I don't even know how I got that in. I still am shocked to this day. So
sorry, we got a little sidetracked there, but go ahead.
Okay. That's what we do.
So that was your goal coming into the tournament, to win?
No, I really wasn't to win. Honestly, it was to catch a big smallmouth. I really wanted a 20+ inch smallmouth. So that's actually kind of what drove me to deeper water. So
yeah. What about you, Cole?
Ooh, I really, going back to my earlier point, is really to learn new water. I had quickly realized that the area that I fished last year, because of the high wind, got kind of stained up and blown out. And I tend to like clearer water, more finesse style fishing. So it was pivoted, going in, of course you want to be competitive, but going into that morning, I said, I just want to learn a new area at a new spot and see if I can, find them. And I think my goal for most tournaments is to try to catch a keeper limit and, over 15-inch limit of fish. And I can feel a little better about the day if that happens.
Yeah. Very nice. Tony, did you lose any big fish during the tournament?
Yeah, I kind of already talked about some of them. I would say the first fish of the day I got on, it was 5 minutes in. John was actually down the point from me, and when it was probably like a 14 or 15 max, it came up, shot up like they normally do, and spit the hook out, and I was only in about 3 foot of water, and I was like, oh, please don't let this be my day, because in that first one I was like, this is not going to get me down. But that one, like I said, I lost some big ones that I didn't see, and then the other big one I caught off that point that came straight out of the water, and I saw it, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I mean, I almost want to go back there this weekend and fish it again just because of that. But yeah, that was, and I lost a few other ones, but I'd say maybe 5 total. Some of them I just shook off. They were so small. They were like, 9 inches, I was like, just get off here. I don't have time for you, So.
I'm over measuring my 9 inches. Oh man, I got a 9-incher.
Hey Doug, thanks for watching.
Yeah, Doug, thank you.
And Ernesto may not do that. You're right.
Did you lose a big fish?
I can't say this very often. I don't think I lost a single fish that I pinned in the whole tournament, which also adds some frustration of you kind of lose the what could have been story you can tell yourself, right? Or if I'd have done this, maybe I'd have landed that one. But it was one of those really clean tournaments for me that once they were hooked, they didn't come off. But I think it's because the fish I had decided to not jump out of the water and go crazy at the same time. So, and I wasn't around structure that I was worried they were going to wrap me on. So weird. I can't say that very often though. So normally more lost than gained when you're out there fishing. Yeah,
I'm actually going out this weekend. Yeah, no kidding. I'm going out this weekend to fish a boat tournament, my first boat tournament out there. So I met a guy at Academy of all places, and we started talking. And so the I-70 bass is going to fish out there this weekend. So I haven't been 70 in a bass boat in a long time, so I'll probably have the old butt puckered up pretty hard on that water. I'm not used to going that fast across the water. So I've only got 6 rods, so I'm like, oh, man, what do I bring? So I'm just bringing what kind of got the bites last weekend, and maybe a finesse jig or 2. but it ought to be interesting to see that side of things. So, Tony, do you have any fishing superstitions or traditions?
I think my tradition is to work backwards from launch time. So by that I mean if launch is at 6 o'clock, I go, okay, how far am I from the boat ramp? Okay, I need 30 minutes to load, so that's 5:30. It takes me 15 minutes to get there. That's what is that? 5:15. And so I need to get up 1 hour prior to that. So I'll set my alarm for 4:15, and then I'll set an alarm for 15 minutes after that, just so I don't miss it. Because I don't want to be rushed. I know I forget stuff when I get rushed, whether it be a trolling motor I forget to put on, or whether it be a flag or lights, turn my lights on, or a rod, I don't know, whatever it is, or my identifier, right? I don't like to rush myself, so I try to take it easy, slow paced, get a cup of coffee in me before I leave wherever I'm staying, and then head out, and make sure I give myself plenty of time to get there and take a real leisure pace to get on the water so I don't forget anything. So
Very nice. Cole, what about yourself?
I'm with Tony on his process. I do the same thing, but one of the things I enjoy, especially about tournaments, when you kind of learn to love the ritual, right, of getting on the water. But I think one of my favorite moments is more when, because in our tournaments we have the ability to try to get close to your spot, right, and you have this 30-minute window before Lions End. Even though I may not rush to where I want to fish, I like the idea of just rushing and pausing, for that time period. So that's always kind of my hurry, is not to try to get to a spot. And oftentimes I try not to go straight to where I want to fish, because you tend to blow it up, right? Going in, spot locking, hanging out there, making noise. But I like to get close to where I'm going so that when that clock strikes tournament time, I can be casting a line and ready to roll.
Very nice. All right.
Kind of like we did, Tim, right? We launched together, and
yeah,
we're just
we had
chilling.
A couple people be like, "Hey, we're heading over here." I was like, "The hell you are!"
Yeah, we took off.
I do have a funny story about you though. You were sitting there at the boat ramp, and you're like, "Oh crap, I don't have my motor on."
Yep.
We're ready to rock and roll. So
then I'm trying to put a trolling motor on that slippery ramp, going, this is not a smart decision to see myself dropping it. So
yeah, I'm over catching like 7 inches. I look over and Cole's already got 3. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, this is gonna be a rough tournament for me. But yeah, you're a hammer, so yeah. But well, if you could keep one memory from this tournament day, what would it be, Tony?
I'm going to say two memories. The first one is, of course, the award ceremony.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool. There was I counted, and there was 18 people out of the 22 people that participated
Very cool.
at the award ceremony in a parking lot. So the ability for everybody to show up and be there and
care,
and, take care and congratulate you. And, it was a lot of, it was really cool. I don't know if I've seen that high a turnout for a tournament award ceremony. So that was really cool. It shows you the camaraderie that we have within the club and stuff like that. So that was really cool. And I was like, there wasn't 18 people there. And I counted them on when I was doing the award ceremony video, and I was like, well, that's pretty amazing. So it's always great to see everybody show up and congratulate each other and talk about fishing. And so that was one. And then the second one was, I've only had my light scope for 3 months now, and I'm not that great with it. I mean, I use it to find structure more than anything else than fish. But on this particular day, I did see a lot of fish swimming. Now, I'm sure there was catfish and drum in there as well. Trying to identify what types of fish they are and size and stuff like that, I'm not good at it all. But I was casting out to the last fish I caught of the day, and I was casting out to the point, and I had my spot lock on, and I was bringing the fish, or bringing the jig in. And I was like, oh, there's the jig, because I'm really bad about pointing the forward-facing sonar in the direction I'm casting. I just forget sometimes. I was like, oh, there it is, and I see it hit the top of this. It looked like a big chunk rock, right? Like probably like 2 foot tall, and I seen a fish swimming on the other side of it. I was like, well, I'm almost reeled in, so I just kind of moved it slow like this and kind of worked it back, and I could see it hop off the rock. And as soon as it hit down there, that fish hit it. And so I seen it hit it, and I could see it, swim around, and it was at I think it was 2:15 when I took a picture. So I actually thought I was farther away from the rock than I actually was. So I'm like, oh, I probably should think about that in the future, where my location is and where I'm looking. But so I live scoped it in a sense. I seen it swimming there. I seen my bait, and it jumped off that rock. I hit it and just freaking devoured it. And it ended up being a 17.75, which I called at 2:15. So that was for me, that was actually more exciting than the fish that I thought was a drum, the big bass. So
very nice. Cole?
Yeah, I'd say almost the opposite of the live scope, seeing them on side scan and just kind of trusting what I'm looking at there as well. So it's kind of neat to see. So I've always known that smallmouth, sometimes you can throw right on top of their head and you're not going to change their opinion. And the next moment they're in a feeding mode, and then you could throw any lure you want at them and they're going to eat it, right? So it was just kind of neat to confirm that wolf pack movement that I've always kind of felt when you fish and get into those flurries, that I was able to watch that happen. And so that was kind of a neat lesson.
Very nice. Well, for me, I was, from my memory is, even though I was mad at myself, I was really proud of Tony for what he did, because, you always think, well, he's my little brother, he got lucky. But when he started telling me how he caught him, I was like, holy crap, this kid's learning something. so
I learned the best.
Yeah. So he's learning a lot, and you guys need to be worried. But no, another one was, it was on Friday. There's this big tree stump over by where we launched from, and I was pulling my jig up, and as I was pulling it up, or my tube up, I was pulling it up, this 10-inch smallmouth came up. I could see everything, and about a 4-pound plus smallmouth came up and was getting ready to hit my tube, and that little guy took it from him. And I sat there for the next 30 minutes casting at that stupid stump, and it never came back. But it was pretty cool. That little one took it from that big one. I got the little one in, but I thought that was pretty dang cool. Yeah. But so you guys ready to switch it up a little bit?
Sure.
Tony, what's your favorite lure of all time? I kind of probably know the answer to this, but go ahead.
I think for sheer numbers, because I haven't been doing it forever, I do like a jig a lot. It's a good old Ned rig. It's won me a lot. It's caught me so many fish. I'm gotten very good with the Ned rig. Not that there's that much to learn, but I don't know, just all around in cold water and hot water and whatever else, it seems to catch fish, even if it's just even if it's just little smaller fish a lot of times. So I've caught a lot of big fish too, but I've caught a lot of good fish on a Ned rig. So just a good old fashioned Ned rig.
Very nice.
I like to throw a little bit heavier weighted head though.
Yeah.
So
cool.
So the lure that I don't throw that often, but I'm awful fond of, is the lure I grew up as a kid. Was the only bass lure I threw, which was a 6-inch Zara spook. It looked like a bullfrog.
Yeah.
And I caught bass like crazy on that thing. And people would be like, no way you can catch bass on that big lure. Now I'm throwing, small, tiny little finesse jigs, right? So I'm not learning my lesson here, but I love that as my nostalgia lure. But honestly, I go back to the versatility of a Senko. So whether, you cut it down and make it a Ned rig, you throw a weightless, Texas, Carolina, I feel like if I had to pick one lure and that was the only one I could throw, it would be probably a 5-inch Senko, and allow me to kind of use that to adjust to the water depth or whatever environment I'm in.
You like the chicken rig too?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, for sure. If you had only one rod setup, what would that be? And who would you choose? What rod company would you choose? Rod reel. Let's say rod reel. Let's just make it a combo. Rod reel combo.
I got my first Shimano Vanford 3000 series 2 years ago. And I just freaking thing's so lightweight. Just does everything I want it to do. I went from a big old heavy reel to, I forget what it was, to who knows what
I
it
think
was.
you had a 4000 series, didn't you? Like
No, I'm talking about like one of those.
the Zebco 33 that you used to use.
Yeah, that one. That's what I won Melbourne on. It was a Cygnus Fluger's no Fluger no
Hmm,
Cygnus, that
might be.
$40 reel and a ugly stick is what I won Melbourne on. And yeah, that's what I didn't lose a fish all day, all weekend. And when I upgraded to that and felt it in my hand, I'm like, yep, I have 3 of them now, and I'm actually want to get a 4th one. I carry 4 spinning reels and 4 bait casters on my kayak pretty much at all times. So probably the Shimano Vanford is my favorite reel because I like finesse fishing so much. As far as pairing, I switched a lot of rods in the last 3 years because how first of all to buy $500 combos when you first start out, 8 of them is a lot of money. So it's been a slow and steady process. So I've tried different rods. Right now, I really like just the Victory. Been using a 610 and a 7.3 depending on the weight I'm throwing. Victory rod, and it took a little bit getting used to because they're so much more sensitive. You think you got to bite like every single time it hits a rock. So that's probably my favorite combo right now. I'm sure that might change in the future. But it does me well for my finesse jigs and Ned rigs that I like to throw so much. So
Very nice.
we got a
Cole?
question here.
Oh, go ahead.
Doug wants to know if anybody caught fish on topwater in the tourney. Nope, I didn't. I threw it in the morning, didn't get a bite because all the
I
fish
didn't even
were up.
try.
So I
On
threw it for about
Friday,
10 minutes.
on Friday, I seen them blowing up in front of me, and they were smallmouth. And I threw a
Dang.
rocking style bait, and I did not. They did not blow up on it. I'm like, what the heck? They did hit a spinner bait. I threw a spinner bait in there, and they hit, but they wouldn't hit that walking bait.
I can't remember, Doug. Is that what you caught your big one on? You had a 17, 18 and a quarter.
18, yeah, 18 and a quarter, I think.
We'll see what he says. But Cole, I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah, well, I'm copying Tony here, right? You got to follow in the footsteps of greatness, and I'm a big Vanford fan on the Shimano side. I tend to throw either 2000 or 2500 series just because of. But if I had to pick one combo, it's probably going to be a spinning reel just because of the versatility of it. And I don't have a rod per se. I've bought really nice St. Croix, and I've bought some really cheap ones. I found that I break my rods way too frequently to invest a ton in the rod. I know the importance of it, but I found that really like those Phoenix feathers. Those Phoenix rods have done really well. I tend to like, especially on my spinning rods, that fast action, but I want kind of a very stiff, tinny feel to it. I want to feel the bottom, especially if I'm fishing rock. I don't want a lot of give to that rod, even on a medium light setup. So that'd be my ideal, is probably a medium light Phoenix feather with a Vanford. That's been my go-to. But recently I've started exploring, like this tournament, I caught most of my fish on a BFS setup.
Nice.
It is a smaller Corrado that's meant to throw really, really light lures on a very light bait casting rod. It was great in the wind. That's where I really enjoyed a setup like that, because I was a lot tighter to the line. I could get the lure down a lot quicker without a lot of slack line blowing around.
Nice.
I got
Derek's. He said he caught a couple of dinks on topwater, but
yeah. I got a question for you. What kind of line you throwing?
So I typically pair with a 15 to 20 pound braid, and I run a Tahatsu fluoro leader, and I typically run 8 if the water's clear. If I'm chasing largemouth, I'll bump it to 10. I was a 6 pound line guy for a long time, and I realized over time it didn't matter if I went to a better quality fluoro leader. So what about you, Tony? Are you a braid to leader guy?
I am. I wasn't always, but I am now. I pretty much put 15 pound braid on all of my spinning rods, and then I usually do somewhere between 10 and 15, depending on the water clarity as well. I've been throwing a lot of 12 lately, giving it a try. I actually been using the Cast King braid, fluoro. I haven't lost. I've caught so much good stuff on, like, not lost any fish and broke lines on that Cast King stuff. I'm a fanboy of it. I know it's a cheaper stuff, but it's done me really well. So usually between 10 and 15. Most of the time, I actually have some 12 that I've been throwing a lot lately. So I like that. So I think I put 15 on though because I was worried. I was the one going to chase a big smallmouth. I was like, 12. So I put 15 on Saturday.
Very nice. Slower rate of fall anyway, so might have helped you out a little bit.
Maybe.
Yeah. How do you haul your kayak? What's your favorite? This is what's your favorite or your DIY? Like if you made one yourself, or
I think a lot of people have seen my trailer my old trailer I built. I bought a utility trailer and built a racking system and all that, and that was before I had a Hobie. So I like the versatility of a utility trailer because I'm too cheap to buy just a kayak trailer. So I have to justify to myself that I can convert it. So all my trailers are modular that I haul on. So I can take my kayak rack off and use it to haul the lawnmower or move somebody or something like that. So my favorite DIY for this trailer that I have right now that I got this year was I built adjustable sliding out of metal tubes. So they slide in and out. So you can carry different size kayaks on it.
Kind of like the Fish Texas trailer that kind of slides in and out.
Very much so. That's where I got the idea. There's a video out there if you want to watch it. Random likes. But I've gotten a little less on DIY stuff. DIY is my friend because it's usually cheaper and to get you started. And as we all know, if I were to go out and buy the setup that everybody has, I didn't want to spend $15,000, $20,000 to get tournament fishing. So it's been spend a couple thousand each year, upgrade your rods. And then from my $25 Harbor Freight fishing crate I turned into to, like this year I bought a 16 by 16 Yak Attack, which is way better than my DIY one. But my DIY one did me really well.
Yeah.
But it's where do you spend the money? Like, do I want to buy more lures? Do I want to upgrade my fishing? And starting to get to the point where I've got a nice setup and starting to buy less DIY stuff. But DIY, I think, is how the kayak community does it, right? I think everybody's got something DIY, trailer, kayak, forward-facing sonar, rod, pole, whatever. I think every single person I see has something DIY on their kayak. So
nice. Cole?
Yeah, I had to look back. So I've had the trailer that I run for well over 6 years, maybe 7 years now. And it's been neat because it was just picked it up for free, the back of a rental house that held, I think, and it's 18-foot glass boat on it. So it's an old 78 Rolco trailer that I stripped down and refinished. So to your point, Tony, about DIY, if anyone's got questions, hit me up on that. But it was a fun process. And that started with, this is great. I free up my bed space. I don't have to do this pivot, at the bottom of the boat ramp to get it into the water. Adding a second tier for a second kayak. But the two things that I've done to it that I've really enjoyed, number one, that I didn't think I'd love as much as I do, are my side boxes. I look like, the truck drivers going down the road, see all that chrome popping, and they probably get a little excited, and that wasn't my intent. But to be able to, I have my trolling motor, like a quick release bracket mounted in there, so I can just clip it in. I can store all my tackle, all my camping gear, and then as well as I have a couple of different rod setups in there as well. But that has gotten a lot of stuff out of the bed of my truck that as my family's grown, and if they join me, it's kind of nice to free that up and not have it piled full of stuff. And then that rooftop tent has been phenomenal for tournaments when I don't want to set up camp. I want to show up, pop up, sleep, and be done. So it's kind of nice to have all that in one platform. But it was not, to your point, Tony, if I had to go buy that setup now, it'd seem outrageous. But little by little, I tend to add something every year to it or think of something.
How fast can you get that tent up and down?
It takes me about 30 seconds to be able to sleep in it. Wow. It takes about the same amount of time. It's just, you just undo the latches and it pops itself up, and then you put it back down, mattress and beddings in it.
So, I didn't see, was it a hard top or was it a soft top?
Hard
Hard
top.
top.
Yeah, very nice.
If you ever see Cole at a tournament, and you should ask him about the story behind that, but we won't go into that today.
That's right. That's right. That'll be our campfire story.
Yeah,
right.
great campfire story. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Tony, what's one piece of advice you give to a new person starting out in kayak fishing?
I'll go Nike style. Just do it.
Yeah.
Like Tim almost begged me to do it, right? Like when he's done a few of them that first year prior to me starting. He's like, just come out. It's a lot of fun. You know, it's great guys, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know. You know, I was like, fine, I guess I'll do it. And honestly, I was kind of destroyed the first couple ones. Perry destroyed me because I spent 3 days catching drum. And then when I finally was at Mountain City and I caught one in the first tournament, and then like Perry, and then Mountain City, I got my limit for the first time. And I was like, I don't know, it was like 67 or 70 inches, something like that. And I was just so excited. Right. What's that?
That's a funny story right there when we were leaving. I'm like, it's fine. You're like, I can't download my pictures. We got to get to the gas station. I was like, it'll be fine. You don't need to download. He's like, no, you'll understand.
The Tourney X app wasn't working right. And I had to download it and reload it and download it. And I was like, we got to get to the gas station because we had drove together. And I was like, I got to get to the gas station so I can get these fish up submitted because I want to get my limit and all this kind of stuff, right? And we got there, and I think it took me 3 times to delete the app and re-download it, and I got my last fish submitted 3 minutes before the cutoff. So, true story. If you ever have that issue, just go to the browser version on your phone, like open Safari, Google, whatever you use, and just go into there and submit them that way. Negates the app, and it works better. I found that out after the fact. So
you didn't ever tell me this.
Yeah, I thought I did, but anyway, so it's yeah, that was just go out and do it. Just go out and fish. Like come out, you know, fish a little bit. Nobody's gonna go out and exude greatness. Although we have a lot of really good rookies this year. Shout out to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a little scared of these rookies that we have this year. Ernesto and Austin and people like them. They're killing it, you know. They're beating me most of the time. So, you know, even if you're not that great of an angler, just come out and fish with us, you know. Yeah, so I would just do it. I'll stop there before I keep going on.
Cole?
Oh, I could say it much better. Just jump in. It's very scary the first time, right? Showing up, feeling like you're going to mess it up, but that's okay if you do.
Yep.
But what you'll find if you've never done a tournament before, but you love to fish, you love to kayak fish, is there's just a little different level of excitement that hits when you feel something bite. It just means a little more, and you start to chase that high in tournaments, which is why you see a lot of guys stick in it, right? Now it can eat you alive at the same time, but you learn a lot more, a lot faster because you now aren't just learning from your experience. You get to see the experience of peers around you and pick that stuff up. So if you want to get better, it's probably one of the fastest ways for you to get better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you should definitely watch On the Line podcast.
Yeah.
That's where the intel's at.
Yeah.
And the award ceremony, because there's a lot of juice that gets given out at the award ceremony. So,
yeah.
Well, shoot, guys, thanks a lot. We're going to move into our next segment, which is basically new to us, Rigged and Ready. And Cole's going to kind of take the lead, I think, or Tony, you, on just motors in general. And we're going to also talk about Perry, what we think our thoughts of who's going to win Perry, and kind of discuss that. Leave a comment about who's going to win Perry. So anyway, Tony.
We'll come back to Perry at the end. And
it'll be interesting.
If you're watching right now, put who you think's going to win or who's your money on at Perry, and we'll come back to it.
Yep.
But Cole, reason we asked him to do this, and also shout out to Joe Bailey, who couldn't make it, and so we thought we might have a little extra time, and Tim and I have been really wanting to do something like this, not just trolling motors, but also kayaks, and give different people and their experiences, because maybe you want to upgrade, maybe you're buying your first kayak. With that, maybe you want to buy a motor, right? It's trolling motor. Cole's got a lot of experience. I'll let you talk about your experience with it, Cole, but We're going to talk about some of the things we're talking about is bow versus stern. Do we want, what bolts do you want, type of batteries, safety, lots of different things. But I'm going to turn it over to Cole, and we'll just kind of let him tell about his experience. And Tim and I will also talk about, our experience with our XI3s. And Tim's got an NK 300. Is that right? Yeah. So
awesome.
Go ahead, Cole.
Well, hey, I to give some background, so I got to say, okay, I went down this journey this year of all things motor. Now, I'm not beholden to a motor brand, but I was asked by Jackson to really lean in and say, okay, what are these plastic boats capable of? What can work, whether it's bow versus stern, what's safe, but ultimately, what kind of performance specs do we get out of them? So I certainly have so much information, we probably can't get to it today. But I definitely want to open it up to the folks that are listening to drop a comment with a question that you may have about motors. I am no expert. I'm just someone who has had the ability to get their hands on the majority of both bow and stern motors that that are manufactured for kayaks to test them out. And so I'm going to share my thoughts, take them with a grain of salt. I want to, bring up the elephant in the room here that some people are anti-motor, and that is okay. I could probably argue right alongside. I was a guy that started with a paddle first and see the value of it. But at the end of the day, being in Kansas, we have big, windswept, wide open lakes. And so for a lot of folks, the ability to get to those spots, to hold your spot is important. So I'll start out, though, with the conversation of bow versus stern. So, Tony, you had mentioned you rock the XI3?
Correct.
How do you have it set up? How did you get it affixed to your Hobie?
What's the
one objective?
One objective, thank you. I use the one objective mount. There's 2 screws that go into the handle on the front, and then 2 that go into the it's just basically a plastic piece that goes into where the hatch goes, the screws for the hatch, which are not adequate. I'm going to say it first. I've ripped it off. Video out there, check it out.
When you're doing 60 across the water,
I was doing 3.
And I'll ask that, Tony. So what is your all out? What's your top speed that you're seeing on your graph?
So I'll say that I've got the Hobie PA12, just to add that to it if you don't know that already. If I've got top speed I got like 100 amp hour, 12 volt battery. If it's, regular wind speed, nothing crazy, 4.2. So I can pedal though with my Hobie, and I've had it up to almost 6.
There you go.
So
had both. And Tim, is that the same experience for you on the XI3?
Yep, about 4.2. Yep.
When you throw the NK300 on the back of it, what are you seeing then?
About 6.2, 6.3. No wind, 6.4.
Yep. So in the debate, it's interesting because you get one side that loves, okay, I have a motor that I can, it's pulling me along, so it's going to keep me oriented in a spot lock ability, right, with my bow facing into the wind. But often you sacrifice kind of the performance aspect, right, that you get off the rear of the kayak as far as speed. So I'll pick on Tim. You can only have one. What are you picking and why?
Probably the motor guide. But we had 30-mile-an-hour winds on Friday and had the NK on there. And I did all right with it, but I stand up a lot. And you can't stand up with the NK 300. It's just rough. But overall, like if I'm fishing the Cedar Bluffs, a lot of trees, the XI3 wins out. If I want to get a hole shot and I'm going to the other side of the lake and I know it's going to be a long run and there's not going to be much wind, NK 300. But probably the motor guide, honestly, if I had to choose.
And Tony, do you feel, I don't know if you've borrowed his at all. Do you have any thoughts?
I think he just said it. One of the things that I like to do, and Tim's really got me hooked on this, pun intended, but is the ability to stand up and use your remote, and steer while you're, and not have to try to move your feet pedals, you know. My biggest beef with it is I fish windy points a lot, and it's going to blow you in the windy point with your nose facing the wrong way. So I like my XI3, but honestly, I'm very curious to hear about some of the motors, because I want to be able to have a motor on the back and either reverse or something that's spot locking me while I'm facing the bank. That's my dream motor, and I don't know if that's available, but we're going to talk about it, and maybe to go a little bit faster.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's the journey I had. Was really started out with, you know, how fast you can go with a motor, bow versus stern, and really the question of, can a bow motor go as fast as, you know, a stern motor? So because an NK300, it's a 300 or 3 horsepower motor. It, you know, depends on the kayak. Could a bow motor do the same performance off the front? And the answer now is yes. That wasn't really the case several years ago. And again, you sacrifice a lot. So during this testing, I got my hands on the Garmin Kraken, which is a pivot style force motor that they built a 48-inch shaft for that you have to cut down, right? One of those, but it's a 36 volt. And then the new Lowrance Ghost as well, the Tarova that just rolled out from Minn Kota and PowerPole. And while some of them are 12 or 24 volt application, for those, that's just how much power, the size of the battery that they take. You really have to have that 36 volt to get the thrust that you're going to compete with off of the back, that 120 pounds of thrust. But with that comes an issue of weight, right? So I did a lot of testing, and by that, very scientific, putting them on a scale and weighing each motor to tell you what do they actually weigh. You see what you see online. And an example is that XI3, although what it says on the box, the motor itself, if you already have something to mount it to on the kayak, is around 32 pounds, maybe 34, depending on your setup, versus a motor like the Kraken, Ghost, or PowerPole, a 36 volt version, is going to be between 47 and 55 pounds.
Oh, wow.
That's a big difference, right?
Yeah,
so the question is, what happens to your kayak when you add an extra 20 pounds to the very nose of it, right? So the first thing that was really interesting that I figured out with some of the design team at Jackson is, man, it's not the motor that determines how fast the kayak goes. It's the whole design. So your experience, Tony, of going 4.2 is what the vast majority of 12 to 14 foot kayaks that have a pedal drive system, the way that they're swelled, are going to go. Some will make it 4.4, some less. But it's interesting because you look at a Native Titan, that is one of the biggest kayaks on the market. It's actually going to be one of the fastest motorized because it's got such a flat, wide deck that some of these motors would actually move a 14-foot John boat faster than they're going to move a kayak because of all of the curvature that happens towards the bottom. So the thing that I always want to bring up to folks that are considering a motor is, the first thing is considering, does the bow of your motor make sense? And for me, I love it because that's where I spend my time, right? I'm going half a mile an hour along a shoreline, right? I'm spot locking. I'm making micro adjustments. But you lose the ability to make runs with it. So when you think about how do you want to put a motor on, you really have to consider weight. So I have to bring this up for folks. Always do the math on your boat. And I don't know, Tim or Tony, if you've done this. When you add up the weight of your motor, your batteries, all the gear that you bring, and yourself, I tell folks that you should be looking at a kayak where you're not under the max weight capacity, but you're at 75% of it. So an example, if you have a 500-pound weight capacity on a big kayak, really don't want to see folks putting more than 400 pounds of total gear and weight on it, because you really do run into an issue of water egress that's going to happen when you use spear waves and things going with that. And the funny thing is, it's all about how you mount them, right? And I was told some folks that most kayaks, I don't know one today off the shelf that's going to have enough plastic in the front end for some of these 36-volt motors that you don't need to reinforce it with like a one objective plate, an extra piece to back it, because they're not really going to handle it long term. And you put a lot of money into it. So spec wise, if you take the XI3 or a Tarova, it was interesting because I was very similar to Tony, 4.2 to 4.4, depending on the setup and speed. And then if I compared it to a PowerPole move on the same exact kayak, I was getting 6.5. If I trimmed it right, I was probably getting close to 7 miles an hour.
Man.
So pretty big difference, although most guys go, that's 2 miles an hour.
No,
it doesn't feel like 2 miles an hour when you're on a kayak, right?
Yeah.
So I got to tell a story, though, that kind of indicates. So in all of this testing that I was doing with these different brands, when you're going that fast, I never felt it in the XI3, but if you go to steer, when you're going all out, you get a little bit of wobble, right? And you kind of want to feel like it throws you out of the seat, but you adjust. I was heading out across the lake, and I tried to make a small movement going about 6.5 miles an hour. And that small movement registered as a pretty decent turn on the head of the trolling motor. And that kayak just went straight over. There was nothing. There was no stopping it. There was nothing I could have done to ride that one out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the risk, right?
Yeah.
That you run with that to get that speed off of the bow. But you got to learn pretty quickly to steer with your rudder, not the motor itself, at that speed. But of all those options, I'll share an opinion if you guys want it on those different motors. I never had a problem with my XI3. And in the years that I ran it, I know it's a brushed motor, so supposedly brushed motors won't last as long as brushless. So I have high hopes that the Tarova will really meet the mass market where they're at. It's essentially the XI3. But overall, the winner came out, and I'm going to get some comments for this. It's was the PowerPole. I've never seen a motor built so well. The components of that, I get why they charge what they charge for it. It's not for everybody. But if I was really serious about looking at something in that upper end range, I still really like the new Lowrance Ghost, if someone can figure out how to cut the shaft down a little bit.
Yeah. And you were talking to us, or you were telling us a story about that PowerPole, how it just eats the grass, like the grass is nothing for it.
And that is one big difference I noticed between an XI3 and a 36 volt like that PowerPole is I used to have to say, crap, I'm in grass. Let me pull the motor up. And now I'm definitely leaving it down, and I'm just augering through it. I haven't found, between even lily pads, thick choke lily pads that are notorious for choking you out, I haven't found anything it won't go through. So I got to give it a testament there. But again, I sacrifice quite a bit of weight off the front of that. So if there was ever a tournament with 35 mile per hour winds, I might consider pulling it just because of the weight of the bow. Pull me out of the waves a little more.
Is that a triple prop or is that double? Does that have two?
It's triple.
Triple? Okay.
They rolled out a stainless steel prop, and I laughed and thought, no. Like, this thing is not going to break. My kayak nose will break off before anything on this trolling motor breaks. So
I have a couple questions on that. So how long is that shaft on that one? Is it 36 or 40?
36.
And what's a cost? Is there only one model, right, at this point in time?
For the kayak version, the 36-inch model, it's probably just shy of $5,000 for the motor. It's about $1,500 over what you're going to pay for a Garmin Kraken that you would cut down. You don't have to cut these motors down, but basically any 36-inch pivot style. And when I say pivot style, these are not the ones you lift up that scissor down. They just they fold over.
Right.
That's really what you're looking for on a kayak. I don't agree that 36 is where the shaft length should be. I think 40, 42, these kayaks are getting bigger and taller off the water.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen, most guys, I don't know how tight yours is, how far down it goes before the locking collar hits, but most guys are right in that last 3 or 4 inches of their trolling motor.
Couple waves, you can actually hear it coming up and out.
Have you tested the Tarova? Is that right? Is that right?
I have. Mm-hmm.
And how fast did that go?
So the Tarova was almost identical to the XI3. in our experience. And again, if I'm comparing these all on the same kayak, because that's
Right,
important.
right.
But it really has more to do with the thrust of that motor, and that motor is going to be right in that same range as the Xide 3,
About
pushing
55 pounds of thrust.
55 pounds of thrust, which is, people go, well, can I have a 12-volt motor that pushes 100 pounds of thrust? It's a motor issue at that point,
Yeah.
right? You don't have enough juice to really push that voltage through that housing. So that's why you're going to see, you have to make the decision. Are you going to be a 12? They make some motors that are 12 or 24 volt, or are you going to be a 24, 36 volt person? And so you're either getting something that's lighter, or you're getting something that's heavier and faster. But you're not, both of them are going to be the same efficiency. And I can walk through that as far as how much battery they use.
Yeah. And so is the Ghost about the same as that as well?
Yeah. The big thing there is both the Kraken, the Ghost, and the PowerPole are all right in that 47 to 55 pound range as far as the weight of the motor itself. So you really don't gain anything. The PowerPole's the lightest by a few pounds. But they are all relatively the same. Feature-wise, some of the features that I really enjoyed, the Lowrance Ghost, their remote has very similar to Garmin, to where it has a joystick, and that is really handy as a fisherman to not have to hit right, left, that you can kind of throw the joystick on the Ghost and it'll point the motor in that position of the joystick. Whereas the Garmin has that, you can kind of have it as an in motion where you kind of point it where you want it to go. And then PowerPole is pretty simple, but what a lot of guys find is that, I guess a question for you all, because people have to decide if they want that GPS feature. Do you use heading lock very often on your Xide?
Every time.
And see, mine tracks off to the right every time I use it. I can't get it to go straight, so I'm not sure.
You've got to point it in that direction for like 10 seconds before you hit it, because it's at least that's what I found. If I
probably times almost flip me on my kayak, because I'm like, nope, that's not where I'm going. I'm going that way.
It needs to, the GPS this is just a complete guess. So Cole, maybe you can clarify this for me. But when I'm using my heading, I've noticed that if I just click it, it hasn't orientated itself in that direction yet. It feels like it's, if I just turned or moved, it's still, the GPS is not caught up yet. So if I find that if for about, even 5 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds, if I stay in the direction I want to go before I click the heading lock or whatever it's called, then I will go the direction I want it to. That's what I found.
You probably are, my guess is, Tim, that you probably need to reset your motor and go through the setup where you spin it around a few times. What it is it's messed up on what true north is for you, or, straight ahead. And it's got to put that so it knows, oh, if he's pointed this way, the motor's got to be canted, and so when you set your GPS, it's just off a notch or two.
Maybe I just go with it, because the way I've been doing tournaments lately, I just see where it ends up taking me.
Yeah, they take you right to the fish.
Hell yeah, there they are. So, yeah.
But I would say for most, I'd love to get your guys' opinion, and anyone that wants to throw a comment in there.
Yeah.
I always tell folks, really figure out what you want your motor to accomplish for you. Some guys are very spot fishermen. They want to be anchored up. Some are travelers, right? I want to cover water. I'm a power fisherman. And that should really change, not just what pro is telling you, what you see guys using out there. For most folks that aren't just purely going after speed, the bow, they're going to be happier with it on the water, unless they're hitting a lot of rivers, moving waters, things like that. But the Tarova is a great option, and I tell folks it's a great 12-volt setup, right? It's kind of the only one we got, let's be honest. There's not too many people in the game until you bump up to that 36 or 24-volt option. It's a little bit bigger and heavier.
And it comes back to, I think for a lot of people, if you're just getting into it, especially, or maybe you've been in it for a while, is it worth the cost, right? If you're only fishing, if you're fishing 500 acre or less places, right? Maybe you don't need a trolling motor. I know for me, what sold me when I was down doing the 10 killer last year at the Bassmaster Kayak Classic, whatever they're calling it these days. I think I went 60 to 70 miles in pre-fishing in the 2 days of the tournament, pedaling. and I would come over because I didn't have forward facing sonar or anything like that at that time. I was going over the top of like brush and stuff, and the wind was blowing 15 miles an hour, and I just couldn't stay on it. And it was 30, 40 foot of water. So it's not like I'm throwing an anchor out to hold me on it, right? So I could have, but I got back and I put everything on the cart and hit send for me, because I was like, if I'm going to fish anything of size, I really need something. I will say that the other thing that I don't like about my trolling motor is I don't know how many times I've hit my my rod when I'm side casting, when I'm sitting down on the front of my bait on my motor. Yeah, but that would be nice to have a rear mounted one for that. But that was the main reason I bought it, is because I couldn't stay on a spot in the wind. I mean, spot lock, right? I mean, that's what it's called. So, and it bothered me, and it was hard for me to get back to that spot, because you got this big open water and you're in really deep water, and you run over a big brush pile, and you're like, you see fish on it, and you're like, oh yeah, and then you're trying to get back to it, and you're pedaling against the wind, and that big kayaks don't turn that easy. At least mine doesn't. So,
Cole, what kind of sold you on a trolling motor?
Yeah, I think it was just fun, right? I like to play. I like to try new things out, and I loved going to a pedal drive. Was a game changer. I could never go back to a paddle, right, on flat water. Yeah. And so when I did that, the same thing, I wanted to be able to pivot, to turn, to get into a dock slip, right, and then bring myself back out and not have to get the paddle out and do a big U-stroke. So, the thing that I started getting curious about this year when it came to motors was, what do we think the future is going to look like, right? Is it going to be one or the other? Is it going to be dual motor setups, right or wrong? I always like to kind of get ahead and understand, how do these manufacturers that build these kayaks that we demand as anglers really start to bring those in? And we've seen that, right? They start putting power plates on everything, so you can, link things together. But I think the big shift is coming in hull design, because the reality is that these kayaks, if you want the performance and the stability out of them, they weren't built to put 50 pounds on the nose of them, right? And so how do you start to address that? You're starting to see it with that new native hammer that's coming out. They're starting to really pay attention to how to bring the width of the kayak early in the boat, instead of right at the middle of your seat where your widest point used to be. And they're bringing the backs out as well to handle the capacity stuff. But then you still got to make it a kayak, right? And still have the ability to get shallow, still have the weight down to where you can still pull it into a remote spot. But I think the big thing for me, I'm looking for, I don't know anyone that's doing it, right, is it'd sure be nice to have someone that has one that auto stows and deploys, right? We all got our rope system, pull your rope, pull your motor up on it, as well as, continuing to figure out how to go more hands-free even than the remote. So it was interesting, because I was challenged. I go, well, I've been so involved in the bow, and I welcome questions that people have about the current motors that are out there, and the benefits of it. But then I said, all right, to be fair, I got to try motors off the back of the kayak as well, right? And I was like, everything's bow motors where it's at if you had to pick one. So I've been able to test the new Garmin Current, so I can answer some questions on that. The Torqeedo, I believe it's the 1104, the 3 horsepower version, and then obviously the NK 180 Pro and the NK 300 as well off the back of the kayak. And I'll tell you guys, I was a little bit wrong. I told myself that this felt old school, that I wasn't going to like it. And obviously you have to go to some type of foot steer setup on them. But I certainly found applications that I would say outshine the bow, particularly in really skinny water. I was able to hop logs with it, where it's kind of hard to do that with a bow motor that you got to pull up and down. But it was fun, because I was able to talk to Garmin's R&D team before the release of the Garmin Current, and a lot of their secrets were kept from me, right? And as they should, they're a big company. But I was sharing a lot of my concerns that I had around the ultimate goal in talking to them was to try to get them to cut the Kraken shaft down and build a lightweight kayak version. Still want that. I still think it would be a cool motor. But in their development, they had picked up something that I think was really interesting, and that's their man overboard tag. You guys heard of that? You guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
That was one thing that I really hit on was, listen, you're going 6 or 7, even off the bow, and I fall over. I just got to hope I'm conscious enough to hit the off button because that kayak's not stopping at that point. Luckily, when my kayak flipped completely over in that moment, my motor's out of the water, so it couldn't go anywhere.
Man, that's scary.
But I thought that was a really neat innovation that they came up with, is a cordless man overboard tag, and I think that's going to drive a lot of innovation in the fishing industry. The other thing that I love about that motor is the Garmin Current, the foot steer system on it's really neat. Ability to just not have any cables running that you can push down to go fast, go reverse, but you could treat it like a zero turn mower.
That's cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, John was asking about it, so that's what.
Yeah. So, and John, to your point, it's interesting because I have the same issues. If I say, okay, I'm buying one motor, what is it going to be? I'm going all in, buy once, cry once. I'm not fully sold on it because I would like to see, like most people, that 24, 36 volt, 100-pound thrust option, little more speed.
Yeah.
But again, they're a big company and they're smart and they don't want to go kick something out there that's dangerous to the average angler. So they're, looking at it, but it's great. The one downside, and this is to you, when you talk about spot lock, is that they do have spot lock. You hit a button and it does, but regardless of what happens when you hit spot lock, the bearing portion of where your motor comes into the water is always going to end up downwind.
Yeah.
So there's confusion. I was reading their review, some of their comments on some of their posts today from Garmin, and people are like, well, is it going to keep me facing into the wind? And on spot lock, for a little bit until the wind hits your bow and turns you all the way around, but then you're going to be facing downwind. Some guys fish that way. But I tell folks that if that's your sole determining factor, the reality is you pull up to a point, you can't guarantee the wind direction. You can try to play it and get to that side of the point, but just like half the time when you spot lock off of a bank and you're going to be facing out into the main lake and not the shore, because the wind's blowing that direction, the same thing's going to happen off your stern. So it's the same issue, except for those that purely focus on wind blown points. But
so I guess on the spot lock being on the back, you just come into the point like you're going into the point with the wind, and it would just reverse, correct, on that, and it would
correct. Yeah, it's going to hold you. So guys that have a swivel seat would have an advantage there.
Oh, yeah.
If in those moments you wanted to be able to turn yourself around, that would be pretty clutch. The thing too that in its name, the Garmin Current, it's really handy for those that like to fish in moving water. Because imagine, when you spot lock, you're upstream, but a lot of guys that do drift style fishing, or they want to be facing downstream but pitching, and just moving along slowly, it keeps that boat oriented downstream, as it had kind of indicated in its name. So I haven't done although I've tested it, I haven't done a full A/B comparison to it. I know speed-wise, it's faster than you think for it's called a 40-pound thrust motor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I saw, was that Derek that had mentioned that his tiller was faster than his Xide 3? That's just physics off of the back, right? You're always going to be more efficient. In fact, the PowerPole was the only bow motor in my lineup that was as fast as my NK 300, but I still think my NK 300 edged it out off the rear of the kayak as far as speed goes. And so you don't have to have, if it was that 75, that 24 volt version, that's really what you want as far as speed goes. But for those that, especially those that want something that's just one motor, it's going to be a good option. We'll see what the market thinks of it. I tend to look at it and say, well, it's really competing against the PowerPole, the Garmin Kraken, the Lowrance Ghost, those $3,000 plus motors. and even a Torqeedo can get pretty close to that depending on the battery choice that you go with. So Newport's just on that other side of it that is a lot more affordable. That gives you that power.
I will say every time you crack into that NK300 full blast, it puts a smile on your face every time.
It is.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. And then everybody else goes bye-bye. You're like, okay, I chose the right one.
What kind of speeds were you getting out of the Garmin?
So that's a good point. So in the same kayak that I achieved in the Xide 3 around 4.2, and the Garmin Current was pushing about 5.4 to 5.6 in that kayak. Again, it's another 12 volt kind of setup. It was so phenomenal for what it is.
Yeah.
And what's really unique is that motor doesn't use a lot of power, meaning that your battery goes a long time with that setup.
Okay.
And that can get a little confusing, and I can get into that. Amps versus thrust and how you use it, but
that price point was it $29.99?
Yeah, I tell folks it's more like $3,500 by the time you get the pedals with it, because most people want those wireless pedals.
Yeah,
that come with it.
Yeah, I was kind of looking into that for myself because I want the spot lock, and I always find myself going, I want to be facing the wind, not, does it have reverse? On that one?
Instant reverse. So that
instant reverse. Okay.
I appreciate you bringing that up. That is one thing I actually use on my that the Ghost, the Kraken, and the PowerPole have even off the bow, just like Garmin does off the stern, is that I can hit a button and then the propeller spins the opposite way. So if I want to move backwards, I don't have to rotate the head of the motor all the way around to move backwards. I just hit a button and it reverses the propeller.
That's awesome.
So
how is it? How is it the depth wise? Is it
in the water?
In the water.
Yeah. I set it to the same kind of chine line that I did, so it sets at the same depth as the NK300 off the rear. But it's fairly light. It's a 25-pound motor, which is not that much heavier. It's a tad bit heavier maybe than the NK300, but really not.
Especially on the back.
Yeah. So
and then what does the I was gonna say here. Does you have like pulling it up and putting it down? Do you have to have a cable or something for that?
There is a cable system for it, but that is the only cable you have after you plug it in. So everything's networked through a single cable. You do have a stow and deploy cable to pull, but it's pretty effortless. They have a pretty good internal pulley system in it. So it's not as difficult as maybe the Torqeedos or the NK300s. Not that those are terrible, but there is, some risk of when that motor's locked into place. There's similar to your trolling motor up the front. There's a pin that would break if you hit something really hard.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for somebody to kind of dive in, because I know some guys are going to want to run rivers and be able to have that thing just pop up.
Yeah.
Which it does. But being the way that it's done, it could take a little more of a beating in that scenario.
I was really excited about that one because I like all the features that they're thinking about, but I'm not 100% sold on it yet. So I might give it a year.
I think that's a fair bet. See, I want to see more direct. I wish that was a motor I could have had set up in parallel with something else to demo. Maybe we'll get a dealer that's going to get a few in and let us have some fun with it. But I think it really comes down to it's so much better to work a bank with, in my opinion. Just sit there and just barely make adjustments. You don't think about it. But when it comes to spot lock, if getting spun around on that scenario is going to be a pain, that's also something to think about. But it's interesting because, all that being said, if you're trying to make the decision of bow versus stern, I'm giving you such a political answer and saying, well, it just depends what you want to do. Depends on your budget, though. You can get into a great kind of GPS motor for, $1,500 to $1,800 off the bow. That's going to be pretty similar. You can actually be a little bit cheaper off the stern with the Newport style motors. But at the end of the day, don't forget your battery. Right. That's going to be your most important powerhouse on it, and think through that, how you're going to use it, where you're going to put it, and go from there. So for you guys, what size battery do you run on your Xide 3s?
100 amp hour.
100.
Have you ever had a tournament where you ran out of power?
Never.
Yeah, but only because of my own stupidity.
Because you forgot to charge it the night before?
And it just happened to me like 2 weeks ago. What happened was the battery cables were corroded where they were soldered together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I upgraded my I took the charger and cut the ends off and put the Anderson connectors on the battery and Anderson connectors on the charger. And I plugged it in and walked away and came back like an hour later. I was like, wow, that charged fast, because it didn't charge at all. And so when I got out, I noticed the red light on was on about a couple hours into my fishing trip. And there was, I was like, okay, well, crap. So I just shut it off, and shut off my motor and pedaled. That's why I'll never go without pedals, because that's happened to me multiple times. Also, when I was down at Lake Havasu, I went like 4 hours and thought I could go another 4 hours the next day, and it was 30-mile-an-hour wind, and I was on spot lock and going way too fast. I went like 6 miles in that thing, I swear, and ran out of battery. Luckily, I had someone pick me up at the next boat ramp, so I didn't have to pedal back that far. But I think I want to get 150 amp hour. But the main thing is just to make sure that it actually charges for me. So.
Yeah. Well, do you tap in anything else to that battery, or do you have a separate electronics?
I do run. The only thing I run on it is my GoPro, which does suck some juice on an 8-hour day, but I don't think it's terrible. So I do run my GoPro off that 100 amp hour.
And I've gone 14 hours, I think, on my trolling. I started at Perry one day. I fished all of Perry, left there about 1, went to Clinton, finished down my day. I got done like 8 at night, and I still had juice in that 100 amp hour from XI3. So
that's what I tell folks is
it's impressive.
Don't worry. If you're fishing in a tournament scenario or an all day deal, 100 amp hour on a 12-volt setup is normally plenty. And to give you an example of that, I believe if you were to run the Xide 3 all out, which I think it has 10 steps to it, similar to the Taroba, it's going to pull about 42 amps an hour at full draw. That's 2 hours running full speed. Well, nobody does that. You may think you're making a long run, but you're not. And so when you start to look at it, I always tell folks, every motor manufacturer will have a chart that will show you at what step, whether it's step 1 through 10 or 10% of throttle to 100%, is going to show you how many amps it uses. That's the best math. To give you an example, I only run a 60 amp hour battery on my PowerPole, and I know that I've hit the 18-hour mark on it before and have not ran out of juice. And the difference there is it can pull a lot more. It pulls around 55 amps full tilt just because it's giving a lot to it, but it pulls like half an amp at my fishing speed. So basically nothing. We're at a 36 setup versus a 12-volt setup that's pulling, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So don't think that you need the same amperage if you're bumping to a 36 or a 24 that you had in 12. Look at those breakdown charts.
And I have a 100 amp hour 36 volt in my NK300.
Yep.
And usually I'm 100% going from spot to spot. And I think 42% is the most I've ever ran down to. I've got Bluetooth on it. So
what amp did you say that? How many amps was
100
that?
amp hour.
Holy cow. What's that battery weigh?
It's about, I don't know. I want to say about 60 pounds. Man, it's the same as a car battery. I mean, but I put it under my seat to kind of even the weight out. But
love it.
That's why I like my.
I could go to the next state probably with it.
Yeah,
Tim got me on them. It's the Lifetime batteries, the lithium batteries. I got the 100 amp hour mini. It's 19 pounds.
Yep.
So that's really nice, but I regret not getting Bluetooth for it because I think that's it's more of a assurance thing. Like I've only ran out of battery juice twice because of my own stupidity and not charging it properly. So I think I think it was just the assurance of saying, oh, I got plenty of juice. I can make this run as fast as I want. Would be nice to look at, so.
I always recommend that. I know, like, I have some amped outdoor lithiums as well. I've run many different batteries. Obviously lithium, I don't want to glass past that for the viewers here, but in a kayak, weight is everything. So you really have to force yourself to go lithium. I'd rather you get a smaller lithium than, go and spend on like an SLA style battery for you. But the weight matters. So, my 60 amp battery is still 40 pounds, 36 volt battery. And it's part of the equation that I tell people to think about of where your weight is, what your boat can handle from a safety standpoint. But most folks in a 36 volt application in tournament, 60 amps is going to be plenty.
Oh yeah. I still have 70% battery left at the end of the play, so.
Same with that 12 volt, 100 amp is plenty. It's like you said, user error. But my other recommendation that I noticed and talked to another guy that had an Xide 3. He had the same boat as me. And I said, hey, want to race as a joke? And I was over a half a mile faster than him. According to our graph speeds, we had the exact same motor. I'm thinking, is it trim? Is it cavitating? It had to do with his wire gauge that he used.
Oh, really?
So I encourage folks that when you take a motor, especially when you go up to the 24 or 36 volt, you really should be pushing that 6 gauge marine wire. And I think he was running kind of a cheaper 10 gauge wire on his Xide 3 and cheaper plugs. And you realize each one of those connection points can restrict the continuity of the motor and actually give you less performance, which also drains your battery faster. So I always encourage folks, if you get one, make sure that you get marine wire. Always go down, a step. So if it calls for 8, there's nothing wrong with going to 6. Still stay within the ranges, but also pay good money for your connection points. Because the real error that I've seen is, belted plugs on a kayak. Polypropylene kayaks are also very flammable. So I encourage people to, I'd rather you spend your money there than on a better motor, because that's what's going to give you better performance. And so I've found that I've tried a lot of different plugs. I like the Anderson plugs. They're coming from the factory for Newport for a reason. I've also found one hack is that you can buy the aerosol kind of spray dielectric grease. It's considered food grade. It comes in a little can. It hits your, even your graph inputs with that. We don't realize how much moisture gets into stuff.
Oh, I do.
So
I've had issues.
Yeah. It's but I've been using Battery Tender makes a plug. It's a really unique screw lock system. It's very secure when it connects. But I always tell folks, if you're running a motor, you get out, remember, just go grab your connection points, the connection point to your battery, the connection point of your trolling motor. And if it's hotter than what it should be, at ambient temp hitting it, you need to kind of get after that and change it out.
So I think old Johnny boy there, I think he went down and picked up a new kayak, didn't he, Tony?
So he said, I don't know if he wanted everybody to know that, but I guess the cat's out of the bag.
We don't have to say what it is. Unless John wants to say it.
Yeah. John, I hope you got that, and you have to let everybody know what you got. We've been out here for a long time. I don't want to take too much more of your time, Cole, but it's such an interesting topic.
It is.
I hope everybody's really enjoying this, and I think this is something that we can share for, we've always get those questions on what kind of kayak should I buy? Tim and I really want to do one on, get some people on here with different kayaks, experiences, why they bought it. But, a couple other things is, people can just buy the kayak with the motor right on it, like the Old Towns. And what do you think about, do you think there should be any thought on pairing your motor with your graph, such as a Garmin with your graph, like for following contour lines, things like that? Do you think there's any value in that? Or I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, but moving your kayak when it's on spot, like I think Scott talks about his Scott lock. I'm going to coin that phrase.
That's the new one, Scott lock.
Spot lock on his Old Town with Lowrance, and he can like click it twice and it moves over like so many feet each time he clicks it. Is that something you think people should consider?
I think that's what we're going to see is the future's very similar to what Apple's done in the industry of connectivity. I think that's what you're going to see Garmin do. You're going to see the likes of Lowrance do, to where you're kind of going to be holden by your graph choice to your motor choice, because there's going to be too many features that you don't want to give up switching between them. I will say that, for example, my PowerPole, I have it connected to ProNav, which is an application. So I can set on my graph, I can say I want to go from point A to point B, and it actually will route me and just self-drive me there. That's neat. I don't know that I need it. I don't know that I can't, at the speeds I'm going, can't just make little adjustments or heading lock. But the ability, I think the real trick are for those that end up getting like the Garmin Puck, to be able to, when you mark a point, you know exactly where that spot is, not just a general 5-foot area. And so that's what happens if you don't have kind of that GPS puck that, Garmin and Lowrance has. You don't know if you're facing, the right direction. It's generally where you say the brush pile is. And then the ability to go to your graph and click that, and it takes your boat right over the exact spot, is going to be more in kind of what I think the future is going to hold for the connectivity of it. Garmin's will do that. The Garmin Current does that out of the box. It's networked, NEMA capable.
Oh, that's cool.
The Lowrance will as well. Most of them all have the ability. It's a network cable you tie in. Is it going to catch you more fish? Meh, I don't know. There's going to be guys that whip everybody's butt that have a paddle and good fishing sense. But I do think the future of the decision is, and that used to be paddle versus pedal, right? And now we're at this cusp of pedal versus power. And I'm the guy that still holds on to liking both. I'm with you. I want that backup plan. I want to be able to go skinny and strip the boat down, but still not have to pick up a paddle. I think that line's going to start getting blurred as people get more confident in what's going to happen. So you're going to see more of the Old Town style. I think that's a phenomenal setup they have with the foot steering integrated into the motor too.
Yeah, it really is.
But they're getting passed up if they can't figure out the wireless pedal system, and they will. They most likely someone will be able to buy the Current and the Garmin unit and slap that in the middle of the kayak. They'll start coming out with kits for it.
If that comes out in 36 volt, I'll probably get it. Honestly.
I know.
I will get it.
Which one?
The Current.
Oh yeah.
I'll have that one if it goes to 36 volt. But John got an XTR, so he's gonna be fishing.
Put anything you want on that boat. You want to put a 5-horse on the back? We can give that a shot.
He'll be fishing off the front of the boat. He'll have his rods up there, and
I don't think he has to worry about the weight of the motor on that one.
No.
I can't wait to see it. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Isn't that one of them? Don't they have one like the XTR with a pedal drive now too?
I'd imagine they're going to roll that out at some point. Yeah. It's not much of a mold change for them to drop their bona fide pedal setup into it.
I think the biggest setback why a lot of people don't run the Old Town is it just is not that fast. Doug, if you're still watching, I'd be curious. I gave him an extra RC prop. I'm curious. You have to let us know if it's any good.
They say another mile an hour probably. So
yeah, depending on the weight of the kayak and the person and all that. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with like they're slow. I mean, they really are slow.
Well, it's the pedal drive not being there for me. So yeah. The reason I got a trolling motor, the whole reason I was at Cedar Bluffs and I was backing up and I was going real fast because I hit a tree and it snapped. My pedal drive snapped. What was the wind that day? 15 plus miles an hour.
Yeah.
So it pushed me up against the trees. I'm out there with my paddle, my PA-14. And I'm starting to tear up. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I tie up around a tree. I get on Amazon. I'm like, trolling motor? Go to one. I did right there on the water. I freaking ordered everything right there. And I was like, I'm done with this. And that was a bad day, but still got my limit, but that was a bad day.
Was there anything else? Other questions?
Other questions?
Talk about, Cole, as is awesome.
I mean, I think we've hit this smattering. Yeah. I'm an open book. If anyone from the club or any of your listeners have questions, to hit me up. And again, I'm just sharing my experience over the last year, really just trying to use everything that's out there, seeing what's capable and what the future might hold for kayaks. So I'm not, again, particular to one side or the other. I think they all have their value. My encouragement, though, is the safety piece. I'm going to hit that one more time, right? Definitely figure out how you can be at least 75% of the weight capacity of your boat all in. You're going to need that on a day that, just like Milford was on Friday, you go to pre-fish and realize it's a little bit hairy out there.
Mm-hmm.
But then also make sure that you're really setting yourself up to power it effectively, kind of understand where everything's at, but then have fun. And so courage, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on what they see, but you want to go fast, go 36, you want a little more efficiency and lightweight, the 12 volts in that range, but there's a host of options, and just pick your budget.
I'd be curious how because I'm really interested in the Garmin current, and I'm really interested is if pedaling while you're moving forward, it takes you any faster than like a Hobie.
Probably.
So there's actually a speed at which you reduce that, and that's around 5.5 miles an hour. So if the motor itself is taking you to that speed, typically you won't be able to pedal to add any thrust value to it. You'll actually add more resistance and drag.
Well, you just know everything, don't you, Cole?
I'm talking about prop driven more than I am fin driven. So maybe you can flipper flapper your way faster than someone can on a prop driven setup.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Looks like Doug had something.
Yep.
So that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that I gotta drive one around, and I actually felt it was more stable than my Hobie PA12. Austin let me get in his and drive it around a little bit. Stability wise, I didn't like the narrowness of it, but like I stepped on it and didn't even move, and I'm like, and I'm not a small guy, and the amazing, it really is truly a stable kayak. But I want to go fast. No, I'm just kidding. And I think honestly, motor, kayak, all around quality, good company. I think that that was my second choice. The Old Town is probably one of the best kayaks to get and go.
Yeah, I agree that they've done a really good job in their new lineup. So, and mine is just degree is in not having any answers and just sitting there trying to try everything on and see what works. But it's fun though to play, and because at the end of the day, I love the community of kayak anglers because we do a lot of DIY, right? But at the same time, we're spending our money at times $1,000, $3,000, $5,000 on the things we put on our plastic boats, and so we kind of want to make sure that we understand what's out there and what the capabilities are. So I wish we had more dealer networks in the state of Kansas that allowed demo days and things like that. But I also want to encourage folks that come out to tournaments, if there's something that you see somebody set up, I know most every one of these tournaments, if you ask them, hey, when you get back to the ramp, can I just take one quick lap? Most guys are going to be like, absolutely, here you go.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll back my trailer down. You can help me put it on, right?
After you pull your baits off.
Yeah.
I offered, somebody wanted to do that, and I said, yeah, just go sit in, and I'll just drive you around with my remote.
Yeah.
They didn't want to do that.
So did you want to move on about Perry? I look like Doug said Derek was possibly a contender for the.
I'm going to run back up there. If anybody else has got guesstimates on Perry, but we'll do Perry and then we'll close out because we've been on here quite a while, although it's been very enjoyable and
very interesting for sure.
And so I'm watching Derek Roberts. He's getting hot. I would agree with that. Perry fishes like Milford. So Tony and Cole, if they find the right point and get on it, and Clayton, of course. I'm actually going to say Cole as well, because I think he's got a few spots that he's a hell of a smallmouth fisherman. But I think that the thing that's different, a little bit different, is I think Perry has a lot bigger bass, and I think Jay will do pretty good too.
Yeah.
So
Cole, when's the last time you fished Perry?
Oh, a couple weeks ago. I probably shouldn't say that, but I got some really good news. Not that I'm competition, but that's the one tournament this year that I likely won't make due to another commitment. So I'm excited to watch the leaderboard on it because it is I'd call it a home lake for me. It's probably one of the closest I have as far as reservoirs go to my house. So don't sleep on it. It's a great smallmouth factory. It's just temperamental. It can be on or it can be off there, but there's really good largies in it too. So don't think that you got to go chase smallmouth on that lake.
I'd like to get one big one of each. That'd be ideal. 20-inch smallmouth and a 20-inch largemouth the same day. That's what my goal is.
So Tony, you said your money's on Cole, but he's not going to be there. So who's your money?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jay.
Jay.
Actually, I'm gonna scratch all of that. I got my money on Big Brother, Tim. So
oh, really?
I bet any one of you that he's going to take it.
Oh, well, we'll see about that.
Now he can't let me down, and he has to win.
Oh boy, that's a rough one.
It was my turn. It was my turn at Milford. It's his turn at Perry.
Cole, what about yourself?
I was going to pick on one of you two for it because I know it's not. I would call it a home lake for you, but it's not that far from home. I know you've been on it. Another sleeper on that lake might be if Troy signs up.
That's who I was going to say.
Yeah.
Troy
lives in my neck of the woods. I see him out there once in a while.
He'll be there.
So he's one that you don't want to forget about out there, and
he's really good on that lake.
But it's also one of those lakes. It can be on fire in one little area and dead in the rest. So
and it's a big stretch. That's when you need that PowerPole, right?
Yeah. You got to either cover a lot of water, or you got to hope you find the right spot.
Yeah.
So this is not really any juice or anything, but about 2 years ago, Tony, we were out there, and I just happened to be on the dam, and I was throwing a whopper plopper, and I've done it since and never even come close. It was literally every single cast I was catching a 16-inch smallmouth plus.
Yeah.
Every cast. I told Tony, I called him, I said, get over here now, and they were still hitting when Tony got over there. And
they started to slow down. I didn't catch as many, but I mean, it was like both of us were just throwing it up there, and
it was like a school just went up there along the whole dam and just and ever since then I've never caught anything over probably. I mean, not that much. I caught some 16s on the dam, but mainly.
Was it a windy day, Tim?
It wasn't too windy, actually. No,
it really wasn't.
Like they're blowing up on it.
Like maybe 5 tops.
It was the craziest dang day I've ever had out there. And
I mean, because we were throwing whopper ploppers without any problems,
every cast.
Yeah.
I know that one day, this will tie into Milford. They had a week of straight line 30-mile-per-hour winds that were blowing straight down the lake into the dam. And I swear every fish in that entire lake was against the dam in that moment. And you could see the shad washing up on the rocks because they couldn't fight the wind anymore. And so that brought everything up there. That's why I had to ask if the wind was blowing hard or something.
It may have been blowing a little bit on the dam, but I was out there 2 nights ago, and that the shad are getting about that big. They're about 3 inches, and there's 100 million of them everywhere you go. They're in all the coves. But what's weird is, I'll just give you a little juice here. I was out there 3 nights ago. Everywhere I went to go fish for smallmouth, I caught largemouth, and decent largemouth. I don't mean small ones. They were pretty good sized largemouth. And I'm like, well, I'm not kidding. I mean, I caught a couple of smallmouth, but they were 10 inches. The largemouth were over 15, 18. And so it was just very weird. I never fished like.
Did you catch a lot of, white bass at the same time?
I caught actually I didn't catch any white bass.
This time of year, that lake, they go shallow chasing those shad, and that'll frustrate some anglers at the tournament.
It will. But I'm telling you, the largemouth will play a pretty big role this time around. I think so.
I'd say that's cool with what you mentioned. I'll say one more thing about it is, you said like the whole week the wind was blowing into the dam like 30 miles an hour. That's one thing I think I've learned a lot this year is not just to look at the weather the day of the tournament, but the whole week before. I never really did that because I always just kind of forget about it. But I've really tried to focus on what was the weather, which way, rain, whether it be rain or wind or whatever that might be, from the day of the tournament, like the last prior 7 days, how
And
things
water
change.
level.
Yeah, and water level as well.
Mhm.
They're pretty stable right now. The water levels, I think they're,
Yeah.
So that's, but yeah, that plays a role too. Like, what am I going to be fishing? I definitely learned that. I think I really started paying more attention after the horrible 10 killer Bassmaster when the water was up and down so much over the 7 days. It was crazy. So,
Well, and with ChatGPT now, one fun thing I've done is if you go and you take a bunch of fish pictures that you have all the metadata stored, right? Where you caught them.
Oh, nice.
It doesn't have the depth, but you have all that information. You can throw that into AI and it will tell you some pretty interesting things, whether they're just theories or interesting connection points that I've picked up from that I hadn't thought about in the past. Like, where was the moonrise and moonset at, and,
write that down.
and all those things that you try to fish sunrise and sunset, but you find out people are catching giants at 11. Well, in the middle of the afternoon, why was that? So it's just interesting. So I don't have any concrete details, but I just find it fascinating to kind of start to gather that information.
Yeah.
I guess I choose Troy for first place at Perry, so that's my.
I'm sticking with you, Tim.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother. I've got some.
It worked on the last podcast.
My biggest smallmouth came from Perry. My biggest largemouths come from Perry in the lake. So we'll see what happens. And it was on fire the other night, so hopefully it's still on fire in August or September. So, yeah. Well, Cole, you want to stay on the line? We can close this.
Yeah, it's a long podcast. Thanks, everybody that's still watching. Thanks for everybody.
Yeah, guys, thank you.
Watching this on the video later. And any last words of advice or anything you want to give a shout out to, Cole? I know I want to give a shout out to my YouTube channel, Random Likes. The video from Milford will be coming out soon. I'll definitely gonna get bumped up on the schedule, although I try to do it weekly. I said I've got a Facebook page now and an Instagram. I don't do as much on as I should, but they're new. So if you want to follow those as well, it's all on Random Likes.
Yeah, and I'd give. Obviously, I'm not tied into any motors, but a lot of the information today that I was able to share was because Jackson Kayaks kind of gave me the green light to go do some investigating, and so we got to give them a shout out for allowing me to do that and at least be able to speak into some of those experiences to their manufacturing side.
All right. Tim, any final shout outs for you, Wheat State Dude?
Yeah, Wheat State Dude. I post fish I miss all the time on there. That's about it. And watch the show, like, subscribe. It helps us out when we see some people that subscribe to our show. So we appreciate everybody.
And we're usually pretty quick to answer. Any questions you might have in the future. So
come out to Perry, please.
Yeah, come out to Perry. Yeah. Come out, meet us, talk to us, and watch Tim hold up a trophy.
Yeah, right. Hey, how many inches do you think it's going to take? Usually about 82, 82.5, but I think
the winner's going to pull out 88.
88?
I was going to say 87.5 was my guess.
Nice. Very nice.
I knew you were going to say that. That's why I went with 88.
Just get you over. Yeah.
88's going to be a good day on Perry. So,
all right, everybody. Thanks for watching tonight, and we will see you on the next podcast, which if it's not before then, will be the week after Perry. So sometime around September. What day would that be?
12th or something, probably around there.
September 11th, 12th, somewhere in that range. So everybody have a great night, and we're out.